I'm Dave Schimpf, and I usually do a softball podcast, but on Wednesdays, I do a podcast called Spirit of America. And it's all about the 250th anniversary of our great country, the United States of America. And I do this podcast in honor of this year and our great country. But it's basically going to be about the Declaration of Independence because that's where it all started. And it started on July 4th, basically July 3rd. And there was a meeting prior to that, but basically it was those two dates, and it was a signing of the Declaration of Independence. And I'm going to do my podcast, and I'm going to basically focus on the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. Okay? Those great men who dedicated their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Think about that. Those 56 men, they put it all on the line. They put it all on the line for us so we could have freedom. Uh, there was some great people involved. There was, excuse me, I think I got to get rid of a little thing that popped up on my screen. That, okay, it went away. I'm all right now. Anyway, um, it involves those great men, our founding fathers, as they call them. Thomas Jefferson, we all know who he was. He wrote the Declaration of Independence, but there was four other men involved at the time of the signing. I mean, of the writing, making sure the words were all correct and making some amendments. And it was John Hancock, the first person who signed the Declaration, and he signed it in large, very cursive word. I mean, his name, and he did it for a reason. He did it so King George the Third wouldn't have to put his glasses on to read it. He wanted to make sure he could see it. So just think about that. He was basically being uh, so-called boisterous and saying, "Here I am. You want to know who I am? Here it is. Put it all on the line." Uh, there was one. Then there was John Adams, who became our second president. There was Benjamin Franklin. We all know who Benjamin Franklin was. He was our so-called person who spoke out, who was a diplomat. He went to England back and forth prior to it to try to get the taxes off and try to get some resolve from the king. He traveled back and forth to England and to Paris, trying to figure something out, but to no avail, basically. But those who are the famous ones. But of course, we're going to talk each week uh, about the signers, okay? And so today, I'm going to talk about not only the signers, but there was some immigrants involved. And immigrants is a great subject going on in our country today. But there was some immigrants. They were not born in America. Okay, they were born elsewhere. And there was, let me see here, there was seven of them. Nope, there was eight of them. I'm sorry, eight signers that were not born in America. They were born elsewhere, and I'm going to mention them because it's important. We're gonna talk about them later on in my podcast, but I want to just mention who these immigrants were. There was Button Gwinnett of Georgia. Okay, Button Gwinnett. Now you got to remember there was 13 colonies. All right, there was Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. Uh, those were our 13 colonies. And Pennsylvania, I'm sorry, I forgot about Pennsylvania. So those were the 13 original, but they weren't born there. So Button Gwinnett of Georgia, he was born in Gloucester, England in 1735. So he was born in England, okay? Gloucester, England. So he was born there, and so that was a big deal. Think about that. He came over here, who knows when? We'll find out. And he was a signer. And then there was Francis Lewis of New York. He was born in Wales. Okay, he was born in Wales in 1713. So he was fairly old when he signed the Declaration of Independence. A lot of the signers weren't that old; they were in their 30s and 40s. Think about that; they had their whole lives ahead of them. So uh, then there was a famous signer called Robert Morris of Pennsylvania. He was born in Lancashire, England, in 1734. So he was also born in England. Okay. Uh, Robert Morris had a lot to say about the Declaration of Independence, and we'll find out more about him. Okay. Uh, then there was James Smith of Teen. All right. So he was fairly old also when it was signed. All right. So he was an immigrant from Ireland. Okay. And then we have George Taylor of Pennsylvania, and he was born in Ireland also in 1716. All right. So uh, we have him also from Ireland, and both of them from Pennsylvania. They were the delegates. Remember, these men were delegates from their colonies to go uh, speak on the Declaration and sign it. Okay. And then there was Matthew Thornton of New Hampshire, and he was born in Ireland also in 1714. So there's another one from Ireland. All right. And another one, but he was from New Hampshire. Then we have James Wilson of Pennsylvania, another one from Pennsylvania, uh, born in, I have a hard time reading this, Carson, Car, Carscurdo, Scotland in 1742. Okay, he was born in Scotland in 1742. Now, if you do a little subtracting, 1776 to 42, okay, that was only 34 years. It was only 34 years when it was done, when he signed it. All right. So that's very important. And then we have the last one here was, sorry, got it. It disappeared. I'm going to bring it back. John Witherspoon from New Jersey. Okay. And he was born in Scotland in 1723. So another one from Scotland. All right. So there's your 8 immigrants that weren't born in America, so to speak. All right. All signers of the Declaration of Independence. And then, guess what? This I found very important. Didn't know this. There was actually a 57th signer. Now, how could there be a 57th signer when we only talk about the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence? His name was Charles Thompson, Thomson. Okay, he was a 57th signer. Now I'm going to read a little bit about him because I want everybody to know that we had 57 signers. Okay, it said only 2 people signed the Declaration of Independence on July 4th. Okay, John Hancock, of course, and the other person to sign was Charles Thompson. Okay, now that's interesting. Only 2 people signed it, and he was one of them. Now, how could that be? How could he be one of the first 2 signers of the Declaration of Independence, but yet we didn't know this, and he's really not on the final signing? This is interesting. In fact, the first printed broadsides distributed throughout the colonies were only the names of these 2 men. So when they started spreading the word and putting these copies out of the Declaration of Independence for everybody to know about, it only showed John Hancock and Charles Thompson. All right. So the man, historians called the 57th signer, the man John Adams referred to as Samuel Adams of Philadelphia, the life and cause of liberty. A Philadelphia merchant an amateur distiller of of uh, of rum. Thompson was Secretary of Congress for 15 years, though both through both the first and second Continental Congress and into the Confederation Congress as well. So he was the lead man. He was the Secretary of the Congress. Wow. Did any of us know this? I certainly didn't. I thought I knew quite a bit, but I didn't know this. Okay. And he was also, let's see, as well as delegates have come and gone, but Charles Thompson remained. So as the delegates were going and coming and going and leaving, and he remained. So, and it says, I'm going to turn this where I can really read it real well. Okay. Besides keeping track of all Congress's personnel correspondence and record of actions and votes, Thompson was credited with assembling the final design of the Great Seal of the United States. Wow. The Great Seal of the United States, which is here yet today, was created and designed by Charles Thompson. All right. 3 prior committees had tried their best to come up with an appropriate emblem for the new country, but it was Thompson who combined elements and elegance. Let me see this. Okay. Sorry about this. For the new country, and it was designed so it was visible today on the back of the dollar bill. Now, you want to know what the Great Seal looks like? You probably got one in your wallet. It's on the back of the dollar bill. The Great Seal of the United States, designed and created by Charles Thompson, the 57th signer of the Declaration of Independence. How about that? With us forever. That man is with us forever. Okay? One of Thompson's final duties was to travel to Mount Vernon to notify George Washington that he had been elected as the first president of the United States. Thompson rode back with the sorry about this, I got to touch it again. With the incumbent, attended the inauguration, and tendered his resignation later on. So he rode back with Washington, was at the inauguration, and actually was there when Washington later on resigned his term of office after 8 years. So, and he also, at his days, he was writing scholarly books and he was confirming and what do you call it when you're changing it from Greek to English. So he was doing that. So that's the story of Charles Thompson, the 57th signer of the Declaration of Independence. How little did we know. Now, why isn't he on it? Because after that was put out, the Declaration of Independence was signed back. Most of the men signed it in August. These are the only 2 that signed it on July 4th. Okay? So they all followed later on. And so what happened was now the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson had to redo it. He had to write it again. Okay? So he had to make the amendments that the delegates came up with, and he had to make some changes to it. And therefore, when the Declaration of Independence was wrote, now the delegates weren't there anymore. They all had to assemble later on. I think it was August 2nd. We'll find out, won't we? And they all had to assemble later on and sign the Declaration of Independence. And then it would follow down the line. And one signer actually signed it, I do believe, in November of 1776, the final signer. So how interesting is that? And that's why Charles Thompson isn't on the Declaration of Independence as we know it today. Interesting fact. Okay, but let's get back to the actual meeting. They met in this hall. Okay, it was a Freedom Hall. It was I can't. I'm trying to think what the name of the hall was. Let me see if I can see it here. Uh, uh, anyway, they met in this hall, and it was hot. Now you got to remember, this is July. This is late June when they start meeting, and it's hot. And believe me, my wife's from Baltimore. Baltimore is not very far from Philadelphia, and I can testify that that time of year and in that part of the country, Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York City, it's hot. It was in the 90s. Now they're sitting in this hall. They can't open the windows because they can't let people hear what they're talking about. They have to put the shades down on the windows so nobody can see them. Okay? They have little light, whatever light they have. They have probably from candles or around the room, and maybe there's a little bit of light from maybe up high where it doesn't matter if the windows are not darkened. Okay, and I'm sure that's how it was done. But when they met and they talked, they had they were in enclosed room in heat, think what they wore. They certainly didn't wear shorts like we do. Okay, they didn't wear t-shirts. They wore wool clothing, a lot of them. Now you think about this. They're wearing wool clothing in 90-degree weather inside this hall. Man, that's almost suffocating. And yet they sat there for hours on end and talked and discussed and probably had their secret, I mean, not secret meetings, but side meetings with their delegates. And they discussed this Declaration of Independence and how it meant, how much it meant. Okay? This went on for a few days. It wasn't just we come in for one day and then you leave the next day. No, this was discussed. And it was a long process. It's suffocating heat. All right? And don't forget, what they were discussing was treasonous. Okay? Treasonous. Uh, if King George, and this isn't like today where you have the media and you have basic information which goes out immediately. This takes days, maybe even weeks before some of this information travels all the way to England, and so that the King of England knows what's going on. And then you have the governors, the British governors of some of these colonies. They don't find out right away. When they do find out, it's basically over and done. Okay, so uh, so it was very patriotic, and and, and their own sound judgment, their own purity of purpose and integrity of conduct was fortified and strengthened by the voice of the people in popular assemblies, embodied in written instructions for the guidance of their representatives. So they were given written instructions to their representatives from each colony about what they could do and what they could talk about. Now, there's 13 colonies, and in order to have this, they have to have the what we call quorum. First, they have to have the quorum, so they have to have enough there, and then they have to have a majority. So the 13, a majority it's what? How many? 7, right? 7 is majority. So they needed 7 out of the 13 colonies to get a majority, but they really wanted 9, at least 9. They were hoping for at least 9 because then it would be, and then maybe they could talk some of the other colonies into it. So it wasn't that easy. They weren't all in support of this. They weren't all coming here to, they had to be, it had to be discussed, and it had to be basically, what do you call it, where they actually had to set their minds on what was being said. So they had to be persuaded, to say, okay, this is necessary. This is necessary that we put this declaration out. And so, and these men in their keeping were instrumental, especially the providence and destinies of America were for the time entrusted. And it had been remarked that men other than such as these, that the most ignorant of men, the most ignorant of the populace, could understand the Declaration of Independence, okay? Could understand it in simple terms and words why we were doing this. That's what they wanted this declaration to be. And it was well worded. We're going to go into it, but it was well worded declaration because on one of my podcasts coming up, I'm gonna read the Declaration of Independence as close to July 4th as I can because that's how much it means. I'm going to actually read it on my podcast. And you say, well, it's going to be kind of boring. No, and not if you know the Declaration. When we put our demands out there, and we're basically calling King George III out. We're telling him what kind of a cad he is, what kind of a nasty person he is. I mean, just think about that. That's what this Declaration of Independence was about. We're calling him out that we've had enough. And so that was what this was all about. So it was very important. It was just also a matter of pride to these men that we do this, okay? They put their life, fortune, and honor on the line, and it was all about the allegiance to the Declaration of Independence. Their bodies now have been returned to their kindred, dust in the grave, and their souls have gone to receive their reward in the spirit land. The spirit land. Just think, they had no idea where we're going to be just 10, 15, 20 years after the signing. A lot of these men were elderly. Most of them were not. Okay? As I just read, some of these immigrants were in their late 30s, early 40s. Certainly Thomas Jefferson wasn't old. Everybody thinks, well, Thomas Jefferson, he wrote the Declaration. He had to be very old. No, Thomas Jefferson was not. John Hancock was not. The only really elderly statesman of any pure age was Benjamin Franklin. And we'll talk about him also. So, again, I hope you found this podcast interesting. I certainly found it interesting when I found out about Charles Thompson, okay? And so I'm going to be out of town in Connecticut, of all places, one of our original 13 colonies. I'm going to be visiting my daughter's family for a week, and it's going to overlap the next 2 Wednesdays. We're going there for our granddaughter, Eva Grace Mathis, is going to graduate from high school there in Connecticut. So we're going to go attend the graduation ceremony and visit, of course, come back. And then, so my next podcast will actually be on the 17th, Wednesday, the 17th. And then we're going to really delve into the more history on the Declaration of Independence and this meeting that we had. So I hope you found this interesting. I have a podcast tomorrow on softball at 4:00. So remember, patriotism, it's right here in your heart, okay? It's in your heart. Let's be patriotic this year. It's the 250th anniversary of America. I was here in 1976 for the 200th anniversary. I was lucky enough and old enough to remember it. A lot of you people who are watching this weren't. So now you get a chance to celebrate 250. Don't miss out, because the next one will be 300. And you probably that's 50 years from now, I won't be here. I know I won't be. So be patriotic. Wave that flag. Get some fireworks if you need to. Get some sparklers. Enjoy it with your grandchildren and your children. Tell them what this is all about. Let them see this podcast if you need be. Okay? So let's be patriotic this year. God bless America.